Yoga and weights. It is not a combination which we would typically associate with bodybuilding. However, 100 years ago, there was one man that would go against the norm and develop a system that mixed the best from the East with the best from the West. That man was called Kola Venkatesh Iyer. Today we will be looking at Kola Venkatesh Iyer, known as Professor K.V. Iyer, who was a gymnast, bodybuilder, proponent of Indian physical culture and author. Professor Iyer claimed to be India's most perfectly developed man and was the most high-profile Indian advocate of physical culture in the first half of the 20th century. Born 8th of January 1897, Kola Venkatesh Iyer was born in the village of Devaraya Samudra in Kola district, Karnataka in India. His mother died when he was 10 and he and his father moved to Bangalore. He could not continue his school studies due to financial problems and had to join his father in a hotel at Bangalore as an assistant cook. His jobs were to fetch water from the well and to grind batter regularly. Along with his work, he used to go to the gymnasium to build his body. The owner of the hotel encouraged young Iyer to continue his bodybuilding practice through his teacher Sri Venkata-Krishnaya. Soon after, he began developing his own system of bodybuilding, which combined gymnastics, Sandow's bodybuilding, Maxalding, and Indian yoga, much like the system developed by Gupta and Ghosh. Iyer, however, was the first to see the value in combining Hatha yoga with Western bodybuilding, and his system is well described in one of his first books called Muscle Cult, a pro-em to my system. As can be seen from the images, his training routine and classes consisted of calisthenic movements as well as gymnastic movements. The main bodybuilding movements he used were from Sandow's system of physical training and involved curls and extensions for the biceps and triceps, rows for the back muscles and lats, sit-ups and other abdominal exercises for targeting the abdominals and other exercises. Iyer taught Maxalding, the system of muscle control developed by Maxick and Sandow, which involves voluntary contraction and relaxation of muscles. He practiced specific asanas including Surya Namaskar, the Sun Salute, and others. He also taught pranayama, which are breathing practices, and he taught kriya, which are cleansing techniques, such as Nauli Kriya, otherwise known as the rope technique in the West, and he also taught mudra and bandha, which are yogic techniques consisting of seals and locks, such as Uddiyana Bandha, otherwise known as the vacuum. His training sessions lasted usually 3.5 hours every day and were a true embodiment of what cultivation of body and mind should be. After class, which was held daily at 5:30 p.m., students would bathe and put on clean clothes, and on Saturdays prepare for puja, which is a form of devotion or prayer. And being bodybuilders, their deity was Hanuman, the Hindu monkey god and giver of strength. Afterwards, they would also meditate. Wow, this is what I really call cultivation of mind, body, and soul, and is true physical culture, and if you permit me saying so, is what is missing in today's bodybuilding world. In his prime, Iyer was considered by several authorities to be one of the 10 most perfectly developed men in the world. Although they might be judged unremarkable by contemporary standards, his measurements reveal a finely tuned and very well developed physique. He was 5 foot 7.5 inches tall and weighed 160 pounds. He had a 44-inch chest and 30-inch waist. His 23-inch thighs and 17-inch biceps completed his well-balanced and symmetrical body. As a side note, although Iyer practiced yoga and bodybuilding, it needs to be stated that his pursuit of physical culture was not necessarily spiritual, because he purposefully built his physique to resemble those of the statues of ancient Greece. For this reason, it can be said that Professor K.V. Iyer was India's Eugen Sandow. As explained in Elliot Goldberg's book titled The Path of Modern Yoga, The History of a Modern Spiritual Practice, Professor Iyer was interested in improving his physique, and in doing so, motivating Indians to do so as well. as described in the paper A Distinctly Indian Body, K.V. Iyer and Physical Culture in 1930s in India by Ramachandran and my friend Conor Heffernan, it is likely that Professor Iyer's motivation came from both the pressures of British colonization and the new and modern physical culture developments as made popular by Eugen Sandow and his contemporaries. Wanting to improve the health and fitness of his fellow countrymen, Professor Iyer took on a unique approach and combined both yoga and bodybuilding to rally his countrymen to become stronger and healthier. Professor Iyer quickly became well known as a proponent of Indian physical culture, defining his essence as a combination of both Western and Eastern principles of beauty, quoting that he was the living ideal of ancient Grecian manhood, end quote, and he sculpted his body with, quote, the ideal proportions of the Sipli Shastra, end quote, which were Indian instructional manuals on physical culture, to produce a body, quote, identical limb to limb and inch to inch with the same, end quote, referring of course to symmetry. Later, Professor K.V. Iyer would be an important contributor to the development of modern yoga. His first gymnasium was established in the Sultan's Palace in Bangalore in 1922, called the Hercules Gymnasium, which was the first Western-style gym in India. It is said that he taught more than 25,000 students in his lifetime, plus mail-order students. He moved several times, finally in 1940, setting up the famous Vyayamsala on JC Road, Bangalore. He became the most important Indian physical culture of the time, attempting to blend yoga, Hindu mysticism, and Occidental physical culture practices like bodybuilding and gymnastics and calisthenics into something uniquely his own. Iyer was a strict vegetarian. His food contains lots of grains, vegetables, chapatis, which is a style of Indian bread, unpolished red rice, fruits, buttermilk and greens, and something called ragi. I'm not quite sure what that is. He even advised and recommended vegetarian food for his students. Like other Hindus, he refused to eat beef, but when queried on the subject of diet, he attempted to put a scientific reason behind his philosophy. The professor's theory of nutrition proposed that meat in the diet includes too much fat and waste. Iyer suggested substituting beans or other vegetables since they all contain protein, with none of the fat associated with meat. Despite his own personal doctrines, however, Iyer never tried to impose his ideas on others. Quote, I am not a faddist, he wrote in 1939. Tolerance is the key of my outlook on life and the living world around me, end quote. In the year 1929, Iyer met Sri T.P. Kailasam, who realized that KV needed to develop his mind as well as his body. He was actually a scholar. And he told KV Iyer, quote, my dear son Venkatesh, do you know that brain and brawn can go together? Along with your body, you can try and develop your brain also, end quote. It was then that Iyer started reading books in English as well as books on medicine, anatomy and physiology, thereby enriching his overall knowledge. Iyer would eventually serve as a physician to the Maharaja of Mysore. By 1930, Professor Iyer had developed contacts and friendships worldwide with contemporary bodybuilders like Eugen Sandow, John Grimmick, Sigmund Klein, Anthony Sansoni, George F. Jowett, Aldous Nordquist, and many more. His own photographs and articles had already started to appear in bodybuilding magazines in the West, including the British Health and Strength, Superman, the American Strength and Health, and later in Muscular Development. Iyer helped as well to present the sequence of yoga asanas called Surya Namaskar, the salute to the sun, as a practical modern stretching exercise rather than as something spiritual. He toured India doing lecture demonstrations accompanied by the yoga guru Sitharaman Sundaram. This helped to change the perception of yoga from a magical, mystical technique intended for the medieval and magical transformation of the body into something immortal by conquering the 5 elements, to a view of the body from the point of view of looking good and being physically fit and healthy. KV Iyer published several books and courses, and these included the aforementioned Muscle Cult, a pro-em to my system, which was written in 1930 and followed by the more comprehensive Perfect Physique, a pro-em to my system in 1936. And these books, of course, contain the training routines that were practiced in the Hercules Gymnasium, which was run by KV Iyer. Professor Iyer's contribution to yoga is obvious with his 1934 publication Surya Namaskar, one of the first books on the yogic practice of the sun salute. Iyer's education status to that of a professor occurred after he wrote the book Chemical Changes in Physical Exercises in English in 1938, without realizing the profound nature of his own work. In the year 1940, he was aptly awarded the doctorate degree from Missouri University and later on became Professor Iyer. In this book, he writes about the standards and secrets of physical fitness, muscle anatomy, chemical composition of muscle, mechanisms of muscular work and protein metabolism, the demand of oxygen during exercise, influence of muscular exercise on oxygen intake, physical and chemical changes in the muscle during exercise, chemical changes in respiration during exercise, and a whole lot of other topics. A real thesis, if you will. In the year 1940, Professor Iyer wrote another book of the name Physique and Figure and dedicated this book to His Highness Sri Krishnarayajendra Wadiyar Bahadur, my lord, these names, the King of Mysore. In this wonderful book, Professor Iyer explains a complete course of dumbbell exercises, which is 160 pages long, with several photographs of Professor Iyer himself performing the exercises. In this book, Professor Iyer also goes to explain the importance of symmetry in physique, as, for example, the development of the chest, the rib cage, the lung and its functions, the physical and chemical aspects of respiration, different types of breathing, the super expansion of the rib cage, and the physical carriage of the upper body. Later on, Professor Iyer would also write further publications on physical culture, namely his physical training courses through correspondence, lessons 1 to 8. Again, these were from his Hercules Gymnasium, and these were India's first physical culture correspondence courses, which were reported to be one of the best in the world. Of interest to note is that Professor Iyer's physique became the primary source of inspiration for Jack LaLanne. LaLanne recalled the following in 1973, quote, "But he was a perfect physical specimen with a muscular and fully developed body that I, skinny Jack LaLanne, envied. After realizing that he and Iyer had the same slight build, their height and bone structure were nearly the same. LaLanne made Iyer his model for changing his body and changed his life. Although Iyer lived on the opposite side of the world," LaLanne wrote, "he became my inspiration. Following Iyer's recommendations for weight resistance exercises, LaLanne worked out, taking my own measurements, always aiming towards the dimensions of KV Iyer, until a few years later, he finally achieved a physique like Iyer's." KV Iyer died on January 3rd, 1980 at the age of 82, and he left his legacy in both bodybuilding and yoga. John Grimmick, a longtime friend of Professor Iyer, had this to say, which was published in the June 1980 edition of Muscular Development. Quote, "When the word came from another friend informing me that Professor Iyer had passed away on January 3rd, I felt a deep sense of loss and remained speechless for a moment. The actual newspaper account of his death said that KV Iyer died at the age of 82. I am sure, though, that for all those 82 years he lived an active, fulfilled life, what with knowing that he was instrumental in helping many people discover the road to better health and fitness. We know that he will be sorely missed by his family and friends, as well as those he guided towards physical perfection. We extend our deepest sympathies to those to whom he was husband, father, and friend." End quote. So I do hope you have enjoyed this video on Professor KV Iyer, India's Eugen Sandow, and the first physical culturist to combine Western bodybuilding and Eastern yoga. If you have enjoyed the video, then please give it a like, leave me your comments, and thanks for watching. And I do want to know what you think of Professor KV Iyer's system. I personally practice both yoga and bodybuilding because I have always thought they complemented each other, but please let me know your own thoughts. That's it from me. This is the Golden Era Bookworm saying bye for now. Head to www.goldenerabookworm.com for the biggest range of classic old school bodybuilding books as ebooks, e-magazines such as Iron Man and Reg Park Journal, high quality bodybuilding posters of the Golden Era stars, merchandise and classic gymwear featuring Steve Reeves, Marvin Eder, John Grimmick, Reg Park, and many other Golden Era stars. For those wishing to build a classic physique, lose fat and build muscle, online training is also available. Collectibles such as rare autographed photos from the Golden Era stars are also available, and to collaborate, please get in touch. As a natural bodybuilder, it is imperative to know your own testosterone levels, as they are a reflection of the anabolic environment created by your diet and training. I would highly recommend using the male hormone test kit from Let's Get Checked, and make sure you use my code GOLDEN30 for a 30% discount. Again, the advantage of checking yourself regularly is that you will know how well your body is anabolically primed to put on the much desired muscle you are working for. Not all of us have the time to go to a gym or the opportunity to have a coach to teach us one-on-one, but with the Future Fitness app, it's like having a personal trainer in your living room. From February 11th onwards, you can try the Future Fitness app for only $19 for the first month. Think of what you can accomplish during that first month. So go on and hit my link at tryfuture.co/GEB to get started.